Sony's first-party exclusive games for the PlayStation 4 have been some of the best of this generation. I mean, it is hit after hit after hit. So back in 2016, during their E3 press conference, they revealed their next exclusive title for the console. Days Gone is an open-world action-adventure horror game set in a harsh wilderness 2 years after a devastating global pandemic turned normally nice people into these things called freakers, who are kinda like zombies but are way more agile and travel in large hordes. It was developed by Ben Studio, who were no strangers to making video games. They developed all of the Siphon Filter titles, handheld versions of Uncharted, and Bubsy 3D? But this was the first time in over a decade the studio got to work on a new IP that wasn't a spin-off of another studio's title. The announcement trailer showed off some gorgeous environments, the devastation of the pandemic, badass motorcycles, scientists doing dodgy shit, but most importantly, it showed us our main character, Deacon St. John. Though Days Gone is a zombie survival game, the announcement trailer didn't focus on that. Instead, it focused on the humanity of Deacon, remembering what he had lost.
You know what I remember most? Riding the open road. The smell of your hair. The touch of your skin.
And what he'd become.
Dig, rope.
And some of us sort of lost our minds.
I think he's dead.
Later trailers would show off the freaker hordes, the combat, the stealth, and the settlements, basically how the game was going to be game, but the initial trailer conveyed the core of the game, humanity. Days Gone had some hype surrounding its reveal back in 2016, but there were those who were none too pleased. You see, this game was announced a few years after people had become sick of zombie games, and who can blame them? You couldn't go a few months without another zombie title being released. Also, it was announced just as people were starting to get tired of open world games. By 2016, gamers had played so many that they had started to lose their appeal. I honestly blame Ubisoft for that one. But even with those things in mind, people wanted to give it a chance. After all, it was another exclusive game for the PS4, and most of them have been fantastic. So with a scheduled release date of 2018, many anticipated Days Gone.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it because they would never understand.
After several delays, Days Gone was finally released on April 26, 2019, and at that point, the hype had significantly died down. To make matters worse, another open world game dropped in late 2018. That title was just, Red Dead Redemption 2, so many gamers had their fix of narrative-driven open world titles. But maybe the reviews might get people excited. Days Gone feels bloated like a movie that goes on for an hour long. The game has a weak shooting system. Days Gone is by far the weakest Sony-backed PS4 exclusive game by average Okay, well, though many critics praised the open world, gameplay, and the characters, many also criticised the story and the lack of character development. With all of that, Days Gone sat at a Metacritic average of 71. Though not a bad score in any means, and it did sell very well at launch, it turned people off the game, myself included. And just like that, Days Gone came and fell into mediocrity. A fate worse than death. But then I recently picked up Days Gone out of a whim for dirt cheap, and I didn't expect much. It was just going to be one of those games I play in my free time when I'm bored and waited for the next big title to come out. But after 30 hours of play, I watched the credits roll with a tear in my eye and a big fat smile on my face. For me, Days Gone was one of the best gaming experiences I've ever had in my entire life, and is easily one of, if not, my game of the year. And in this video, I'm going to tell you why you need to play Days Gone. Completely spoiler free, of course. Well, some light spoilers, but nothing too crazy.
This shit good.
The player controls Deacon St. John, a former Marine turned into bikie, turned into drifter and bounty hunter who loves life on the road. He's joined by his friend Boozer, who is more like a brother to Deacon. He was also a member of the bikie gang Mongrel MC, and the pair have formed a deep bond that cannot be broken. Deacon was also a bit of a ladies' man and had a wife named Sarah, who was the complete opposite to him. She was a PhD and is a research scientist and botanist working for a company called Nero. Though the pair come from different walks of life and have different interests and goals, they fall deeply in love. Everything is going fantastic for our main characters until a global pandemic turns millions of humans into the cannibalistic creatures known as freakers. When the outbreak occurs, Deacon, Sarah and Boozer try to flee to safety. But Sarah is stabbed and critically injured. The trio make their way to a rooftop where a Nero helicopter is taking survivors. But one of the Nero scientists, a man known only as O'Brien, tells him they cannot take any more passengers. His mind has quickly changed though when Deacon pulls out a gun and threatens him. Though O'Brien changes his mind, he tells Deacon they can only take one more person. Deacon decides to put Sarah onto the helicopter and stay with Boozer. He tells his wife that he will come and find her. 2 years pass and society has completely collapsed. Freakers now roam the country and the small number of surviving humans have created outposts, each with their own beliefs, politics and leaders. Deacon found out that the Nero refugee camp Sarah was taken to was overrun by freakers, and though he initially believed she may have survived, as time went on he gave up on finding his wife alive. All he has left of her is a memorial stone with her name scratched onto it and a photograph. This loss has caused Deacon to lose all hope in living and has completely changed him. Before, he was a fun bikie with a rough side but was generally a nice person. Now he is an emotionless bounty hunter who simply survives, no matter what it takes. He and Boozer decide there are too many painful memories where they are, so they decide to pack up everything and head north. But after Boozer is badly injured, an incident that Deacon blames himself for, their trip is delayed until he heals. But Deacon catches sight of a Nero helicopter and runs into O'Brien, who tells Deacon Sarah's flight was actually diverted because of the attack, and that she may still be alive. Though he is happy to think Sarah may have survived, he knows how dangerous it can be to have hope. The rest of the story follows Deacon as he struggles to find hope and his humanity in a world that does everything it can to take that away. The plot in Days Gone is simple in its setup, but I think it's expertly executed. Though the first few hours do have some pretty bad pacing issues, once the ball gets rolling and all the pieces are more or less set up, it clawed itself into me. Let's talk about Deacon himself, who is fantastically performed by Sam Witwer. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing that last name wrong. It's Witwer. I'll just say Witwer. Witwer has had a long career in acting on screen, but has mainly had some smaller roles. You probably know him as the voice and likeness of Starkiller in the Star Wars Force Unleashed series of games. His performance as Deacon is, in my opinion, one of the best in all of video games. He nails every emotional beat throughout Deacon's journey. Happiness, sadness, emptiness, isolation, anger, distrust, and hate are all perfectly conveyed and executed. And the fact that he wasn't nominated for Best Performance at Game of the Year, but fucking Norman Reedus was, is a crime.
Yes, Queen! Yes, Queen! Yes, Queen!
The character of Deacon is complicated, broken, and angry, which can make many believe he is a bad guy. I mean, he does do some truly bad things, but he never comes across as though he enjoys it. Though, there are some times he does, and it's fucking satisfying.
Don't look like you'd be suffering for too long. Leon, you got a little problem here. See, they can smell your blood from all the way down there. What do you suppose that feels like? Huh? Torn apart? Eaten alive?
Guess he's gonna find out. Fuck you.
He is a bitter man who has been pushed to the edge and just wants to survive. His best moments come from flashback scenes which elaborate on his relationship with Sarah. We see them when they first meet and how their relationship progressed. These moments are cute and heartwarming but also heartbreaking because we see who Deacon was with Sarah and who he has become without her.
All right, so this one is called Lavandula angustifolia.
Lavender?
Yes, well, I'm still paying off my student loan, so I will stick with Latin, but you could call it that.
Yeah, get your money's worth. Go for it.
Though Deacon denies his humanity, he begrudgingly shows it when interacting with other characters he meets throughout the game, mainly when talking to Boozer. These two are reliant on each other, but not only when shit gets bad, but emotionally as well, though they don't like to admit it. They love and care for each other and will do whatever is needed to help one another. Even if that means killing someone or going to pick lavender, so be it. Their brotherhood had me smiling so many times throughout my playtime of Days Gone, and I was excited to see how they would interact whenever they were on screen together.
I think that you have a hell of a left hook, asshole. Oh. Yeah, it's the only move I got.
All of this only works though if the world and the smaller characters reinforce these themes, and I'm happy to say Days Gone nails it. Whether it's the different camps who all have their own leaders, politics and problems, or the enemy factions Deacon meets on the road, everything in Days Gone reinforces the themes of a life once lost. They resemble what or who they were and the world used to be, but both have been forever scarred by the freaker epidemic. But some characters have hope, and they try to show Deacon that there are small things worth fighting for, even though he struggles to believe it. This is also shown in the environments. Since the pandemic only happened 2 years ago, the world still resembles something that humans inhabited. Empty cars packed for holidays litter the roads. Abandoned houses with children's bedrooms and dog kennels at the front populate the suburban areas. And the small towns which used to house hundreds of families and people are now ghost towns littered with corpses and stained with blood. These environments show life lost at the hands of the freakers. But the camps throughout the game show the hope within the survivors and how, even in the most dire of situations, they will still strive to form some semblance of happiness, normalcy, and community. Here are some examples. One camp is run by a pseudo Alex Jones who peddles his conspiracy theories over the radio.
What do I do, Lord? Destroy the child. Corrupt them all. This is their plan, people. These are demons.
Another is run by a former matron of a women's prison who runs her camp with an iron fist. There are several other camps I don't want to spoil. Each have their own unique dynamics, but one idea still remains. They are all trying to create a community and find hope. Deacon rejects these ideas because he feels as though there is no point and everyone will die one day. But they do a great job at contrasting Deacon's hopelessness with these camps and the people he interacts with. The story of Days Gone reminded me of The Last of Us. Not because they are both games whose plot both incorporate zombies and loss, but because they both focus on people who have been greatly changed by a pandemic, how that took away their humanity, and what they are willing to do to survive. And in my opinion, the stories of Days Gone resonated with me more than The Last of Us, mainly because I have lost many people who I love, and I know how that can change a person. Seeing Deacon, Boozer, and the rest of the cast and the world go through the same thing hit me harder than most of the major plot points in The Last of Us. I don't know if you'll agree with my comparison, but I hope it convinces you that the plot of Days Gone is something truly special. Now let's get on to the gameplay part of the game, which is what most people want to know about, so here we go. Days Gone is a conventional third-person sandbox title, so you can expect a large map with plenty of places to explore. But unlike other games where they have the player's map cluttered with icons showing side quests or points of interest, Days Gone takes a more fluid route. The player will still encounter such things, but these will randomly occur while you're exploring. These tasks range from helping someone being attacked by freakers or bandits, an enemy camp that needs to be cleared, or an area that may contain some useful items. Though there isn't much variety, the side tasks in Days Gone all contribute to making the player's time somewhat easier. The gameplay is a mixture of crafting, exploration, combat and stealth, and survival horror. That's right, survival horror, but we'll get back to that. Firstly, I want to talk about exploration. You have two modes of traversal, on foot and on a motorbike. On foot is pretty self-explanatory and doesn't really need any explanation, but the motorbike is one of the defining gameplay mechanics of both Days Gone and Deacon himself. Deacon and Boozer are badass bikey boys, and so they have motorbikes. In fact, everyone in this world travels by motorbike, but as others use it as a means for transportation, it is a major component to the character of Deacon and Boozer. But how does the bike work from a gameplay standpoint? Well, you ride it. It is a really satisfying means of transportation. You feel like a loner on the open road, just taking in your surroundings and riding into oblivion. Part of the drifter lifestyle is scavenging. You will find things throughout the world you can use to craft weapons or items. Grab some kerosene and fiber and you got yourself a cheeky Molotov. Find some bandages and you can heal yourself. You can also find scrap which can be used to upgrade your motorcycle, making it faster, more durable, amongst other things. Scavenging is essential for your survival. If you don't do it, you'll be wildly unprepared. There is also a nice balance between combat and stealth because both playstyles are viable options throughout the majority of the game. Stealth is simple but effective. You crouch down, sneak around or behind people, and if you're feeling like a ninja, you can kill them. Or you can equip a suppressor on your guns, which degrades over time, and you can kill a couple of peeps from afar. Stealth is a pretty important option because if other freakers or others notice you, all hell breaks loose and you will have to fight, and that can get overwhelming very fast. That is where we get into the combat. There are parts of the combat that reviewers didn't like, which I'll talk about later because I believe some decisions were influenced by survival horror. But for now, you get access to loads of weapons such as pistols, shotguns, rifles, and a variety of throwables such as grenades and molotovs. The player is given enough options that depending on the situation, they can change their approach on the fly. It feels very fluid and natural. One minute you could be sneaking around and the next, you could be running from a horde of freakers, frantically throwing molotovs behind you to decrease their numbers. Speaking of freakers are fucking awesome. As I mentioned before, they are a fun interpretation of a zombie. Their fast and agile movement sets them apart from other zombies, but the fact they move in packs is what makes them truly unique. If you come across one freaker, there are at least 10 or 20 more nearby. But that isn't the biggest problem. Those are hordes. Hordes were one of the key selling points of Days Gone, and for good reason. Basically, a horde is an excessively large amount of freakers all bundled together, like a wave of gnashing teeth. Sometimes their numbers can even exceed 100. At least I think so. I didn't actually just sit there and count them. so, you know, I could be wrong. But encountering a freak or horde is one of the most intense things I've ever experienced. Accidentally triggering a horde and seeing 100 freakers barrel over cars or buildings to get to you is fucking intimidating. You can either run away or fight, and if you fight, you can clear them out for good, but be warned, this isn't easy and will use lots of your resources. If successful, you have made the world a safer place. If not, you're just another corpse. All of this sounds pretty great, but I did mention that this game is influenced by survival horror mechanics, and I wasn't just talking shit either, so here we go. First, I wanted to find what parts of classic survival horror Days Gone implements. There isn't any tank controls, fixed camera angles, or item management, but Days Gone does utilize limited resources and somewhat clunky combat to really hammer home the feeling of survival and having the odds stacked against you. So I mentioned the bike before. Do you remember that? Well, unlike most games where maintaining the bike is seen more as an annoyance to the player as the developer wants them to explore the world without many complications, Days Gone goes in the complete opposite direction. The bike not only needs to be looked after, but it also needs fuel. A bike that needs fuel? Crazy, right? I know, it's fucking insane. As you drive around, you will constantly need to be aware of how much fuel the bike has left, because if it runs out, well, the bike stops. If that happens, you will either need to push it back to a settlement, find a fuel pump, or find a random gas tank. You can consume less fuel by taking your hand off the accelerator when going downhill, but you will consume more fuel as you drive up steep inclines. The same idea goes with maintaining your bike. It can be damaged if you drive too recklessly, or if a random dude with a gun decides to shoot it. If this happens and you don't have enough scrap, you will need to go find some more in order to repair it. You can upgrade the bike as I mentioned earlier so that it consumes less fuel or is more durable, but these two mechanics never completely go away. What I love about this is that it takes the bike from being just a mode of transportation and turns it into something you need to care about and look after. This also reinforces the idea that Deacon truly loves and relies on his motorcycle, because if it runs out of fuel or is destroyed, you will need to explore the world on foot, and that is extremely dangerous. So it also becomes an essential part of your survival and a safety net. Playing Days Gone without it is extremely stressful, and that stress reminds me of a classic survival horror game. Speaking of classic survival horror, Days Gone's combat is clunky as hell. I mean, it controls like every third-person action game since Resident Evil 4, but unlike in those games where you have an aiming reticule that tells the player where their bullets are going to go bang, Days Gone uses a circle. What this circle represents is the accuracy of your shots. Basically, big circle means you couldn't hit the side of a barn, while a small circle means your shots are more than likely to go where you want them to go. The size of the circle changes depending on if you're running or stationary. This makes the player feel like they never really have complete control during combat, and as a result, makes engaging the enemy a much more tactical and deliberate decision. Another interesting thing that Bend Studio did was limit the amount of ammunition, healing items, and crafting materials you can carry at once. Though these items are relatively abundant, a cap on how much you can carry means you can't take advantage of it all the time, or when shit starts to get frantic. What this instills in the player is that they can't just go in strapped to the nines and shooting everyone on sight, because not only will that alert everything nearby that wants to kill you, but also you will eventually run out of resources. Unless you're lucky enough to find some more stuff or run away, you are probably gonna die. This made me feel like every bullet, health item, or piece of crafting material had meaning, and the decision to use them had significant weight. Though not to the same degree, it gave me flashbacks of when I played Resident Evil on the PlayStation 1 for the first time. I actually reviewed that game, so if you want to watch a video about me reviewing Resident Evil, links will go where links tend to go. Most games that play like Days Gone want the player to feel like an indestructible badass who can kill the entire world. But Days Gone wanted the player to truly feel like they were surviving and humanity was truly under threat. The mechanics of a survival horror game are clear in Days Gone, and honestly, I didn't expect it. The fuel, bike, limited resources, combat limitations, and deciding when to engage in combat are at the core of what made other survival horror games so great. A survival horror influence in a sandbox game is something I never experienced before, and after playing Days Gone, I hope other games follow suit. So I hopefully conveyed in this video that reviews are a fickle thing. They can warn people about terrible games, or they can tell people what games they should grab. But when a game falls into the mediocre score category, it can unintentionally convince players to skip a great game. After all, a review is the opinion of one person. So that is why I made this video, because Days Gone deserves better. It is dirt cheap nowadays and deserves your time. It is a fantastic experience with a moving story, great characters, engaging gameplay, and a great world to explore. Sure, it has its problems, don't get me wrong, but those problems are outweighed by all the things Days Gone gets right. If you didn't play it because of of the reviews, I urge you to give it a chance, because I did and I don't regret it. Thank you for watching my video where I ranted about Days Gone. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe, and if you want to take our relationship to the next level, you can support me over at Patreon, where you'll get access to my content a day early, Discord server, and special videos such as a Q&A. Special thanks to Devin John Malone, Walter, and Sleight of Tongue for contributing at the highest tier on Patreon. If you proposed to me, I would probably say yes. See you all in the next video.